Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, this is going to be a patch notes speedrun. I made a TLDR of the patch notes with this little notepad, and we're going to be reading everything off to you today. So let's get started. Now, overall, we have increased enemy health up to 25% at level 100. A little bit of a small change. Disable bonus XP from Arena for characters below level 50, meaning you can't use it to like boost level easier like you used to. Compression of Arena. This means that it's going to be easier to get up to the harder levels of Arena quicker so that you don't have to have an 8-hour Arena run. Aurelis is finally viable. Now, larger enemies like Imperial Eyes and Immortal Eyes and stuff like that are all now counted as rare, making Aurelis much better, and a lot of nodes that say on boss or rare significantly better. The tier 1 dungeons are easier by like 25% or something like that. Resistance blessings, the floor of them, they're buffed, so instead of like being 45, they're up to like 55 to 75. The all minion resist blessing was buffed. If it was buffed, the health on kill blessing from Rae, it was changed to ward on kill and ward decay threshold, a huge buff by the way. The ward gained on potion use was changed to ward decay threshold, a huge amount. Grand Rhythm of Tide got 20 flat health regen on top of the 200% health regen, meaning that's a giga buff to Grand Rhythm of Tide. The Herot armor blessing was nerfed, so instead of giving you like 70 or something like that, it gives you like 50 or something. The flat armor blessings, all of them across the board got nerfed for a good reason. They were kind of OP. All the leech blessings got nerfed. So, like for instance, the spell damage leech blessing went from like 5% to 2%. Uh, the average legendary potential on Weaver's Wealth items now scale up slightly with corruption. So, for instance, if you're at like 100 corruption, it's like 5%. At 300, it's 10%, and then 14 at 600, meaning that if you push corruption, you'll get higher LP rates, but it's not to the point where like you want to push like 60 billion corruption because eventually there seems to be diminishing returns. Mob density normalized again. Hopefully there's more mobs around everywhere, or like it's on average better, right? Hopefully for real this time. Mods that scaled invisibly like Frenzy and Enrage on Corruption no longer do so and are static. They used to scale if you didn't know. Mono mods have been normalized across the board. Essentially, like void damage from enemies is like 25% increase instead, but corruption as a base went higher. So it's overall a much better change than before. Parry is a new affix that is coming on the suffix of weapons at the very least that we know about. That is like dodge, where you can avoid a hit, but instead you still can get counted as hit and you would still get the ailment from that hit. This is really good for things that like do retaliate or something like that. This is a way of taking less damage without reducing the amount of hits you take for retaliate stuff. And it's really good for weapons because it gives like a two-handed weapon like so much extra chonk for free. Right, so parry has no effect against damage over time effect and is capped at 75%. It is not currently possible to reach the 75% currently, right? There's a giant book about stun avoidance. It's still very bad. Bosses are no longer pushable. You cannot push bosses around the arena anymore. Now, when players die, minions are unsummoned. This means you cannot cheese with a multiplayer party, right? With like an infinite, like, so what you could do is die as a falconer and keep your falcon alive, and your falcon would still keep doing things, and you could technically infinitely push like arena waves or whatever with this. Now they are unsummoned when you die, meaning that you have to actually do it. This is actually a huge nerf to summon Abomination, because now whenever you die, you have to resummon your A-bomb. So we'll see how that feels. Portals can now only be interacted with their creators. This means that you can no longer cheese corruption and stuff like that, because you can't just like constantly rejoin your party's map. Like I believe, for the most part, like I think like it'll be weird. I still need to play with this in game. Now for skills, Dreadshade, all for one got from 60% more to 40% more for solo minions. This small nerf, not big of a deal. Infernal Shade infinite damage now fixed, so the node subjugation that gave you percent damage per second, it is now capped, meaning that not only can you have infinite Infernal Shade, you no longer have to recast it on minions, it also means that you can no longer do the infinite Infernal Shade cheese. Summon Skeletal Mage. Sacrifice Skeletal Mages, like their sacrifice cast, got buffed significantly, like 75% more damage, and now it scales off of necrotic damage, and it's renamed. Summon Skeleton. There's a few Summon Skeleton buffs across the board. Volatile Zombie. Dreadful Horde and Giant Zombie now only have a 10% chance to trigger their effects on indirect casts, like for instance the Rings, Dreadshade, stuff like that. So if you want a bunch of a bunch of big zombies, or if you want a bunch of parasites, it is no longer possible to do that in any good way, right? And now giant zombies, the node that makes giant zombies now only increases the mana cost by 120%, but it still gives you a very large amount of stats, meaning that self-cast zombies will probably end up going into giant zombie later on. Summon Wraith can no longer off screen as much. Their range has been reduced. They also have 20% less cast speed. They're still going to be insanely strong. Frostclaw on through the snow and ever onward got buffed, like the build that I just played. The mana cost on these just got buffed. Now we might be able to grab Volley of Glass and still be able to do that. So that build actually got buffed. Gift to Winter now grants 12% chance to regain 12 mana from 4% chance. This is a huge buff to Frostclaw for some reason, but the ward nodes on it got nerfed, like the ward on crit, and of course the ward per freeze rate got nerfed in half, but that's fine because now you can spam it more. Frostwall. Prepared wards, 12-second cooldown, but you can still give Flame Ward to the party, and I believe it shares the cooldown with Flame Ward. That is really cool because you can still use it as a party ability, but you no longer can spam it like you used to. Rune Bolt has 20% more cast speed. Huge fucking buff. Runic Invocations. Igneous Rain now has 50% ignite chance, and ignites and inflicts have a 20% increased duration. No nerfs on Plasma Orb. Do the devs play the game? Rayoin's not nerfed. So Rayoin's, like, the ward per second got nerfed, but the 30% less damage taken has not been nerfed. No idea why. Hydrahedron nerfed. Hydrahedron nerfed, but Plasma Orb not nerfed. I think Plasma Orb was the better build. No idea why Hydrahedron was nerfed with these changes. Snap Freeze cooldown nerfed significantly. It is now an 18-second cooldown, but you can refresh parts of the CD by freezing enemies. I don't think it's a big enough nerf to make the abuse go away, but you should have to invest a little bit more to make it work. Earthquake. Fury of the Elements makes it so that you can you can spam storm stacks. This makes it so that it has synergy with, of course, Gathering Storm. Summon Bear. Thorn Retaliate 1 second CD. Thorn Retaliate is effectively dead from Summon Bear. It is now a dead build. It is no longer a build. Summon Raptor. Sharp Claws now grant 20% more damage over time for a 20% increase. It's going to do even more ailment damage. Summon Wolves got huge buffs. Instead of 50% increased damage, now it's 25% more melee damage from the Howl buff, which is insane for builds that use Howl for a buff, right? And then Legendary Bite got changed, where now instead it's 1 point, you get 40% more melee damage, 10% less attack speed, and 5% added crit chance instead of the more crit chance. This is really good early on because it lets you cap your crit very easily, not a big problem. Wolf and Recovery also got buffed with flat health regen. They got just a generic 10% more damage buff as well, and then the Squirrels finally got bug fixed, so they're doing 45% less damage now. Summon Thorn Totem got nerfed slightly, 100% cast speeds, 150%, and Nightshade Briar got nerfed a little bit. This does not nerf Thorn Totem at all. It is still a good build. Acid Flask. Poison Pools from Poison Pools node are now limited maximum 4 at once. No idea why this was changed. It's not like as if it did any damage anyways. Ballistas. There was a small rework for Ballistas, really like large amount of changes. I would heavily suggest checking the patch notes, which that link will be down in the description. Cinder Strike. The first bow attack 20% slower. Absolutely no idea. Cinder Strike's first attack now is 200% added damage effectiveness. No idea why this was changed. No idea why there's a 20% slower attack speed on the first bow attack. No idea. Sure, it does more damage, but it doesn't make Cinder Strike a better skill. Dancing Strikes. Windmill Ballet now has 2 points and grants 50% chance to use shurikens, meaning you can always get shurikens every single time you do the second attack, meaning that whenever you're playing a Dancing Strike builds, you're always guaranteed the armor buff. Shadow Daggers, small damage nerf, like 24% damage, less damage, not even like barely scratches the surface. Smoke Blades, I think it's a buff. You get 4 flat melee and throwing damage instead of 10% increase melee and throwing. This does actually nerf Shadow Daggers a little bit because they benefited from the percent a lot more, but this is a buff to like a lot of different builds, right? Now, Erasing Strike. Now it's 550% added damage effectiveness, not enough to make it good. Forge Strike, 500% added damage effectiveness, still not enough to make it good. Highest offering, small nerf for one hit judgment, and of course, consecrated aura judgment. Completely like you will not be able to feel this change. Essentially, you will literally not be able to feel this change. Rebuke, there was a small rework. Essentially, it can gain charges and it has a longer cooldown, and the buffs from it are no longer 100% uptime. So Rebuke is now much more like a flame, like ward kind of skill, but worse. Rive, removed Opportunist node, more crit chance to get some ignited enemies. Not many people use that. Added new node, Scrap Metal. This is after the two-handed node. Whenever you would summon a forged weapon, it causes you to grant a stack of Scrap Metal, which gives you 3% more armor and 3% more Rive damage. Really good. Rive is really good, by the way. Rive is really, really good. The duration can be modified by modifiers to forged weapon duration, meaning Rive Forge Guard might be a build. Who knows? Removed Opportunist. Oh, yeah. I don't know why that's there twice. Let's remove that real quick. Gonna do that. Thank you. Smelter's Wrath. Your armor is doubled while channeling Smelter's Wrath. That is a huge buff because one of the biggest problems with Smelter's Wrath is your survivability when you're standing still. Vengeance. Iron blades are now affected by the nodes on the tree, meaning they actually do damage now. Double Riposte mitigates 18% less, and then Dark Duelist, the node that would give you a buff, it gives you 4% more global damage. So it's up to 20% more global damage, and that is really, 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 really good. So Vengeance might be bad. Now, passives. Berserker got a small nerf. Shaman rework. Absolutely pathetic Shaman rework. I don't even know why they even gave us, I don't even know why they even told us about it because it's not even an actual rework. You're going to be playing Gathering Storm on either Beastmaster or Druid. Mage, Jagged Veil, reduce ward crit from 1 to 2, so you get 5 ward on crit. Still fine. Rogue, Evasion, grants 4% less damage taken while moving. This is a whatever change, right? Now, let's go into the items. Aberrant Call, increased minion damage, now minion melee damage. I'm fine with that. Now grants 35% increased minion movement speed. Very good. I like that. Has effective legendary potential from 38 from 10, meaning that getting a 2 LP one is much harder. Completely understandable. Aberrant's Call still really good. Arrow Guard. Arrow Guard grants 15% to 30% glancing blow chance, and effective legendary potential is 60. It is effectively dead. Arrow Guard is dead, everybody. That is enough to make it not viable for the most part. You'll probably still use it, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as it used to be. This is like a huge nerf. You might be forced to use a different quiver, and bow builds will be squishier because of this. Artor's Legacy, its base got changed. It's much better now, and you also get +2 to minion skills, which is really cool on it. Bleeding Heart, effective LP level from 0 to 40. Huge nerf, but the actual item itself didn't get nerfed, so very strong still. Calamity, for some reason, nerfed. I have no idea why this was nerfed. Ignite wasn't even in that good of a spot. No idea. Cleaver, effective legendary potential to 50. This is a good nerf, but I think Low Life is still going to be strong next patch. Doesn't even matter that this got nerfed. Death Rattle. Death Rattle got nerfed again? It went from 200 to 100, then now to 65? Weird. And then +3 levels of sacrifice? Like, that's weird. Like, this might be good for sacrifice builds, but Death Rattle definitely has seen better day. Like, Zanquin is buffed for some reason. Mad Alchemist Ladle got nerfed. Now you can only get 8 of the more damage, so you can only ever get 48% more damage on the Mad Alchemist Ladle. That is completely fine. We were expecting that. You still get the int to cast speed. Like, you can't stack a billion negative ailments anymore. Nightbringer has an effective legendary potential of 55 from 68 and 85 bow void damage. That might actually make it good for builds. Low life marksman might actually not be a meme. Paranoia, base type changed from Dawn Helm to Full Helm. That's a huge nerf, by the way. And then less damage taken while moving. Yeah, this is like a worse overall change, by the way, for that. Renegade's Will, huge buff, up to 5 for Vengeance, and then effective legendary potential from 10 from 37. Huge Renegade's Will buff. Vengeance might actually be pretty good next patch. The Falcon has been renamed to the Kestrel, which, confusion with, the Falcon, right? No longer grants 15% increased movement speed if you hit, but it grants 7% all the time, which is a buff. 45% chance on haste on hit, which is a buff. 30% effective haste, which is a buff. And then +1 to dexterity. Essentially, the Falcon is like 20 billion times better. This is the tabula rasa of the video game. It is 20 billion times better. They also didn't change the effective LP level, so this chest is going to be a meta breaker. Twisted Hearts, nerf from 5 to 8% instead of 10 to 13%. Twisted Hearts still insanely strong. Even with this nerf, it's still insanely strong because you know what you do, right? You just invest a little bit more into HP. Before, what you would do is you wouldn't invest that much into HP, but now you actually invest into HP with Twisted Heart. Before, you just slap it on and it would work. Now you actually invest into HP. This is a non-change for builds that actually invested into HP. Ivory Ring grants 46 to 130 ward decay threshold instead of 26. This is a huge buff, huge buff. Ward decay threshold might actually be good. Uh, Horn Helm now gets 3% base crit chance for your minions. This is absolutely insane. This is base critical strike chance for your minions. This is absolutely ginormous. This is insane. Like, this base is like a meta breaker. Absolutely insane. Leonine Great Helm grants you 550 armor and 85% reduced bonus damage taken from crits. When you are a sentinel, you will be using this helmet and you will now be crit immune for free. This is absolutely insane. This helmet is ridiculous. New affixes, like we said before, parry chance on the suffix of weapons, I believe, either on the suffixes or the prefixes, I don't know. And then you can't get it on wands, scepters, and bows, so you can get it on everything else other than that. And we're assuming that the two-handed ones have a higher roll. Minion damage suffix has been changed from percent to flat, and that is a buff and a nerf to a lot of different builds. Hybrid mana and mana regen on suffix, I believe, or prefix, I don't know. This is really strong. Getting like mana regen anywhere is really strong, so that's good. Hybrid penetration for everything. It's just for everything. It's great. And then mana efficiency with Ghost Flame. Those are all the changes. Out of all of them, the thing that I'm most annoyed about is they nerfed Cleaver, which is good, right? But then for some reason they left Rayowen's Frost Guard alone. All they did was they just nerfed the ward per second. They didn't nerf the less damage taken, the 30% less damage taken. So Rune Master will still be OP and strong. Hopefully the devs realize that like 30% less damage taken on top of Flame Ward, on top of everything else, is probably going to be very strong. And also as well, I have no idea why Plasma Orb wasn't nerfed. Now, well, Hydrohedron was nerfed. Igneous Rain is cool that it got buffed. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for the video. With all that being said, this has been Dread. I'll have to go do something else. Bye.